Okay, here we go. We'll try this. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call the Door County Board of Supervisors together on order on Tuesday, March 31st at approximately 9:10 a.m. Roll call, please. I'm sorry. Pledge of allegiance to the flag first. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, which stands under God, visible, with liberty and justice for all. Now the roll call, please.
Austin?
Here.
Oh, sorry.
Bacon? Bacon? Ellen?
I should go.
Bacon?
I'll try again. This meeting's on the line.
Bacon?
Hey, Megan, go.
It's not me. They're saying bacon.
Oh, I thought it was gonna be Megan, sorry.
Bacon? Roll call?
Oh, I don't know.
He's in the beacon room.
We are here. Can you hear us?
Yes.
Now we can, yes.
All right.
Okay. I'm present.
Boatman?
Present.
No.
Yeah, had something to do with that. Oh, so-
Is she on?
That's Vinny. Oh,
You can see her.
try again.
Vinny?
On your screen, if you're still having issues, I'm trying to unmute you. There is a way with your mouse. You can see that if you scroll over their screen, mute yourself. So for example, Vinny, right now you are muted. So if you could please unmute it and then try speaking.
Present.
Oh, that works. There you go.
David Engelbert?
Present.
Roy Engelbert?
Here.
Inigo?
Here.
Fisher?
Here.
Tomlinson?
Here.
Halsted?
Here.
I'm Peter? Here. Hook?
Here.
Kohout? Here. Lino?
Here.
Lundell? Here. Minus?
Here.
Norton?
Here.
Robillard? Here. Burley?
Here.
Lee's Watachek? Here. Wait.
Here.
All right. Way to go. Presentation of the agenda.
So moved.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Correspondence in your packet, you'll notice the unassigned fund balance. Next item, public comment. Is there anybody in the public that would like to make a comment?
I guess I will. Can you hear me?
Joel.
Can you hear us?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so I can talk like this. I don't need a microphone and you're okay?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, yeah. Anyway, this is Joel Kitchens. I just thought I would come in and give you a little bit of an update from the state. We stand to be getting about $2 billion from the federal government to spend on battling this. I've been talking to the medical center and all, and hearing their priorities as to where they think the money would be best spent. We've purchased ventilators, but I think that locally here, our hospital has ventilators already, so we're good on that. I know you have other people here that can discuss the local response, so much better than me, so I won't get into that. One of the things that I'm hearing about so much in my office is all the Illinois visitors and what can be done about that. We talked to the governor's office yesterday. They do not plan on changing anything as far as the stay-at-home order. And they're also discouraging local governments from putting up any kind of checkpoints and that kind of thing. I think there's some constitutional questions about doing that. I think Rhode Island is being threatened by New York with that about trying to prevent people from New York going into Rhode Island. So it is a big concern around here, and legitimately, but I don't think that there's going to be much relief coming from us. I guess, do you guys have any questions for me on what this is?
No, not at this time.
Okay, one other thing I guess I'll add on that. With that money coming in from the feds, we probably won't have to spend a lot of state money, which is a good thing, because a month ago we were looking at an $800 million deficit or surplus, and now we will probably end up by the end of the year having to do a repair bill to adjust our budget because our collections are going to be down so drastically. So obviously, like everything else, the landscape has changed tremendously.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else?
Yes, please. This is Christine Reed, R-E-I-D, of Horseville. Couple of questions and an update on the drawdown. Our contact person was Ben Nelson, who we understand is no longer there. So we're wondering, who is the contact person who's overseeing the drawdown at this point? We just walked in from a visit to the dam, and currently there's more water going over the top of the dam than when the drawdown started on November 1st. In fact, this is the 21st day that water is overflowing the dam with the valve open. So I'm glad that Joel is on the line, because I spoke to him during the WDOR call-in probably a month ago about milestones, critical milestones that are either met or missed, thresholds that would cause you, the board, to reconsider that thresholds that are either met or not met, that make you revisit back to the drawing board. Sediment has transported. That's documented. That's really currently not happening because of the water level. It is to some degree, and the runoff from any rain or thawing is going both over the dam and through the valve. But many of us here, and spawning season has started, fishermen are visiting. People are doing like an inventory of the flowage north of the dam, looking for any signs or minnows. And one of the neighbors here was out with a canoe for 4 hours this weekend, and we see absolutely no signs of any fish or minnows. Migrating birds are returning, getting ready to nest, and they will have absolutely no source of food. So when I spoke to Joel during the WDOR call-in, he said, "Oh, get in touch with the DNR." We called the DNR. They said, "We are not monitoring this drawdown. The county is monitoring it." And Joel said that he would talk to you, the board, about that. However, I've never heard what came out of that discussion. So that was, is there a threshold where you would say you reconsider? And who's our contact now? That's all.
Okay, thank you.
Just in terms of this one response, the contact would be Wayne Spricka.
Any other public comment? Is there any supervisor's response? Item number 8, Administrator's Monthly Report.
As you can see this month, there's no specific update in terms of report. Obviously with COVID, we've been really focusing on that. And I know under item number 10, we're going to provide an update on that. So I'll defer to item number 10.
Okay. Approval of the minutes of the February 25th, 2020 County Board meeting.
Motion to approve. I'll second that.
Is additions, deletions, comments, grammatical remarks, or other errors to be corrected? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
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 We're all on.
Approval of the minutes of the March 17th, 2020 Emergency County Board meeting.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second.
Any changes or additions, corrections to that? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, but if I could, just for those that are motioning for the room, it's working out nice, but if you could, maybe just for example, just state your name and then, so Jill's trying to listen, but if people that want to just announce a name and then say aye, and then that way we have the name coming in. Thank you.
Okay. Item number 10, pending business updates, discussion, and conclusions regarding impacts of COVID-19 pandemic.
So I'm trying to see if Dan or Sue are online. So if you guys want to unmute and then provide an update, I'd appreciate it.
Good morning. As I'm sure you're all aware, we sent out a press release yesterday that there's a confirmed case of COVID-19 in a Door County resident. Here's what I can share about that. The case is confirmed in a resident of Door County, and that individual had recent travel out of Door County, but within the state. Other than this, I'm not able to be sharing any particulars about demographics or details of the case. Not only is there HIPAA regulations, it really wouldn't benefit our community to share any particulars. At Public Health, it's on a daily basis to follow up on communicable disease to prevent spread of infection. So we're experienced in this process, and we've begun a contact investigation, which will involve notifying anyone who had contact with this individual. And then we would instruct them in quarantine and monitoring for symptoms. We've been preparing for this, and the state epidemiologists have been updating us on a daily basis. I'm on those calls and telling us that COVID is spreading across our entire state. So us having a case here at this point is really somewhat expected. Again, I can share that there's a case of COVID been confirmed in an individual who resides in Door County, and that this individual had recent travel out of Door County, but within the state of Wisconsin. I'd really appreciate it if you could help us by sharing this information with your constituents as well, and that's all the demographic or particular information we can share. That for several weeks at Public Health, we've been functioning under what's called the Incident Command System. That simply means it's a streamlined way of functioning for this particular event. Our other non-essential activities are, of course, on hold. We've gotten some extra help. 2 of our former staff members, retired public health staff, have come back to help us. We have Dan Kane, residency at Public Health, and he's been a great help from emergency management. And we have staff from other health and human service units being trained to help us. We begun that process last week. It's also been a great support that our County Emergency Operations Center has been activated. This helps with communication and function, and we're doing everything in that center virtually. The other thing I want to say is on a daily basis, I've been encouraging my public health staff to take care of themselves, especially with the stress of this current situation. And I would like to encourage everyone else to also do that, not only to prevent COVID in yourselves and those around you, but to avoid other health situations that could overwhelm our healthcare providers at this time. And of course, encouraging everyone to follow the Safer at Home guidelines. I really feel that's going to help us. And it would be a grassroots effort to prevent spread of infection in our community.
Thank you. Dan, do you want to provide an update?
Dan Kane, Emergency Management Director. I think Sue did a very nice job encapsulating everything that's going on within her department in the county. Again, she mentioned the Emergency Operations Center is up and running. It is all virtual. That brings together all of our internal and some external partners to share information, have situational awareness, and identify needs and resource items that might be needed. Just puts us all on the same page for coordination. So I think Sue did a really nice job. Like I said, pointing it out, I have taken a presidency and I've been attached to her hip for the last several weeks, working in multiple roles, public information and many others. So I'd be happy to field any questions anybody has from that. But I think other than that, that's a pretty good summary of what's going on right now.
Anybody have any questions?
I do.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Sue.
Wait, there was a question.
Questions?
Susan Kohout, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I actually have two questions. First of all, could you share with us what we are doing to protect our ES workers and our deputies?
On that one, actually both areas. I know Aaron's online, so Aaron can provide it, but I know for the sheriff's department, we have our instituted a special work schedule to actually rotate the staff. So that'll be actually going into effect this Sunday, and we actually disapproved that yesterday. In terms of operations for ES, Aaron has put in also similar measures in terms of both protection and staffing. I know Aaron is available, so I don't know if Aaron, if you want to add anything to that, and you have more detail on that one.
Good morning. So for our staff, we've taken this stance that while there has not been community spread in Door County, from our response side, that is how we respond in an effort to protect our staff. So our staff have been wearing the appropriate level of PPE or personal protective equipment for more than 2 weeks now on every single call they go on. Our dispatch center has instituted asking additional questions to give our responding personnel a heads up as well. So with that effort and changing the rotation of crews coming in and out, we feel we're in an okay spot as of today. Thank you.
About deputies?
The deputies, we're instituting in essence, a 7-day on, 14-day off schedule. It's a little bit more complicated than that, but in essence, we're rotating the deputies. We're going to have them work 7 12-hour shifts and then have 14 days off. And we're also building in a backup crew where they are actually on call. So we're actually paying them just to be home, but they're available on call should we have individuals show any signs or anything where they need to be, I guess, self-quarantined for that period of time. But again, that's also in place or going into place.
Emergency management, I can speak to one more thing on that. Through the state and the Strategic National Stockpile, I'm sure many of you have heard about that through the news things. Through the emergency management program, we are trying to, we've done a survey for law enforcement and the non-EMS partners to acquire some more additional PPE, identify what their on-hand number is and what they still need to get through the next 14, 21 days for personal protective equipment. So that resource was sent to the state a few days ago, and we're awaiting through some sort of calculation they have based on what we're going to get from that. We'll be distributing that to our partners as soon as we get it, hopefully later this week.
I have a second question. Can I go on?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, I'm wondering if there's somebody here who could share what the status of supplies for our hospital is.
So I don't know, this is Sue Powers. I don't know exactly, Susan, but I've been taking part in their emergency operations center. I've been invited there on a daily basis and can't always make the meetings, but the last meeting I was to was Monday. That was yesterday. And at that point, they have a sufficient supply of personal protective equipment and hospital rooms, that sort of thing, for the foreseeable next several weeks. They're also working on their surge capability, and they're retrofitting some of the old med surge rooms that were vacated back into, they're retrofitting them to be hospital rooms again.
Ventilators?
I don't know the exact count of ventilators. I can tell you that they increased their ICU capacity by 300%. That was what Dr. Hayes said last evening.
Kevin, I have a question. Supervisor Wanacek. Sue, could you go through the process of when there is a potential case, how the public health follows up with that individual?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So whenever someone is tested, whenever a Door County resident is tested anywhere, whether they go to Green Bay or are tested at Door County Medical Center's drive-through testing facility, we are immediately notified. They send us a fax with the patient information. They also give that patient a handout from us about isolation, and they instruct them in isolation. When we receive their information, we immediately call, within 24 hours, we call everyone and go through the isolation, and we ask them about their symptoms, and we instruct them in things like, if it's worse and you need medical care, if you're going to go there yourself, call your medical care provider before you leave the house. Or if you need to call the ambulance, be sure to tell them that you've been tested for COVID and you could have it. So that's the beginning of it. And then I think I described earlier what we do after someone is diagnosed with COVID. Does that answer your question?
Do you do checks on these individuals, temperature checks on a daily basis while they're waiting for their test results?
We do not. We instruct them in self-monitoring.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a question. This is Supervisor Boltman. I'm not sure, just on the technical side of rolling out the new website, I've just gotten some feedback from people who are having trouble where links on web pages are going to dead ends. I'm just wondering, for example, like Destination Door County or maybe the common places, have we made sure that they've updated their links so that when people are trying to find this health information that they're able to get that? And I don't need an answer, but just hopefully somebody's working on that.
No, this is Ken. We are actively going through the website. So if there are certain links that you think are not working, we would appreciate this an email that could be sent to the Technical Services Department. In terms of other websites, where we have been testing those. But again, if you see errors, please let us know and we can get those updated.
Great, thank you. One more comment. Kind of a minor thing, but when we actually have our listing on the situation update that comes out 3 times a week, that top line says current cases in Door County. And I think if we could just add the word current known or current confirmed cases, I don't know, I feel like when you just see, and up until yesterday it was 0, you feel like, oh, there's nobody in Door County that has it. Well, we just don't know that. So I feel like even where it says current cases in Wisconsin or current cases in the United States, that's just known. And I feel like maybe that word would help people, not give them a false sense of security.
Supervisor Enigal here. I agree. That's one of my biggest dislikes is every report you see is just what's been reported and known to exist, not counting the fact that it's probably here and clearly is here.
So this is Sue Powers. You both raised really good points. The messaging we put out in the fashion that we did because it's consistent what other health departments across the state are doing and what the state is doing. And you're absolutely right. There are probably more cases. In fact, the state epidemiologists tell us that the case counts are just, maybe a 10% fraction of what is really occurring across the state. And we've been trying to do some education on that. If you can think of a better way for us to do that, I'm all ears, but we've been putting out as many messages as we can in different ways.
Yeah, thank you. I don't want to, I'm not second guessing your efforts by any means. I just think even just inserting the word current known or current confirmed cases I think that's more clear.
More accurate.
More accurate. Thank you.
Josh up here for a question for Ken Pavlik. Ken, have there been any layoffs through the highway shop at all? I received a phone call at home. Someone was questioning me about layoffs, and I'm not aware of any.
Right now, we do not have anyone, laid off, but right now we do not have them working. What we do is we have like a skeleton crew that is actually working at highway, similar to what would be, on a weekend situation where they would call in if we have a situation or an incident to occur. So the rest of the staff that are not working are actually using what's called the SPL bank. That was the time that we had provided them in terms of getting them through this period of time. And then once the federal leave kicks in, that would be available. But I do know this in terms of our contingency planning. Once it also gets warmer, we're planning to bring some of those individuals back in because construction and road construction is considered an essential function, and we'll need to get the hot mix plant up and running soon.
Thank you. That's all I needed.
Any other questions concerning the COVID-19 and our response? All right, we will move to resolutions. Resolution 2020-20 in memoriam, Jan Sixel. Mr. Fisher?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll make a motion. We adopt resolution number 2020-20.
David,
okay. In memoriam, Jan Sixel to the Door County Board of Supervisors. Whereas Jan Sixel passed away on March 7th, 2020, and whereas Supervisor Sixel was first elected to the Door County Board of Supervisors and served from February 14th through April 15th, 2002. He was then re-elected in April 2002 and served through April 2004. And whereas Supervisor Sixel represented districts including the town of Nasswaupee, Ward 3, and the town of Sturgeon Bay, Wards 1 and 2. And whereas Supervisor Sixel served on several committees, including Law Enforcement, Legislative Committee, and Land Conservation Committee, now therefore be it resolved that the County Board of Supervisors assembled in regular session this 31st day of March 2020 extend our sincerest sympathy to the family of Jan Sixel with this acknowledgement of his dedication to the citizens of Door County. Mr. Chairman, if I may, Mr. Sixel was also on the Highway Committee, and that's not in there.
Get it added. By voice vote, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Resolution 2020-21, International Migratory Bird Day. Mr. Austin.
Also move to pass that resolution.
Early second.
Any explanation?
Well, I think it's self-explanatory if everybody's read it.
Okay.
I just have a question, Supervisor Boltman. Obviously, this came through the Facilities and Parks Committee, but I'm just curious where this came from. Where did it come from initially? Did someone bring this forward, or is this sort of an annual thing? Or
it's been an annual thing at least last 2 or 3 years. Where it came from, I don't really know.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? By voice vote, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution 2020-22, Families First Coronavirus Response Act, additional FMLA and temporary paid sick leave policy. Ken?
Sure, actually, I'll defer to Grant.
Okay.
Good.
Wait, can we have a motion first?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to adopt resolution 2020-22. Fisher.
Oh, I'll second it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. This was in response to the ongoing COVID-19 outbreak. The Federal Families First Coronavirus Response Act was signed into law on March 18, 2020. It includes an expansion of the Family Medical Leave Act and the addition of emergency paid sick leave. It was initially thought to take effect April 2nd. We later learned it will take effect April 1st, so the resolution will need to be corrected. And the best practice is for the county to adopt a temporary policy to supplement its existing FMLA and paid time off policies to recognize and implement the FFCRA. Of note, in the temporary supplemental policy was attached, and we are handing out an amended policy. I think that was sent to you electronically yesterday. The only amendment is on page 2 on paragraph 6. We had omitted in that paragraph the E911 dispatchers. I don't know if anybody has any questions or you want me to go through the policy.
Supervisor Amical has some questions.
Go ahead.
Yeah, second to pull it back up again. First comment, I noticed on quite a few of the documents we have here, historically, I believe the chairman's name was David. It's been listed as Dave in multiple locations, including this resolution. So that's just a comment. Curious on the attached documents, the temporary supplementary policy. IA1, they give example of to care for a son or daughter if the school has been closed. At the limit of the choices, or is there examples? A lot of these, I'm sure we have employees that also take care of their parents, and they may go to some adult care environment during the day, and that's closed as well now.
The policy mirrors the language of the federal act, so we are at the limits of what we can do.
Okay, so that would also explain in 7 where it says must be returned, which just doesn't sound like the normal language we would use when the individuals that draft our resolutions.
Yes.
I believe that is my only questions.
This is Alexis. Hi, I'm Peter. I have a question to the comment that you just made. How much of this do we have flexibility in, and how much is just straight from the federal bill?
It is a creature of the federal legislation, and we need to adopt it as is. We can't add or subtract. The one area where we did have discretion that I was going to mention is the act gives us the ability to exclude emergency responders, and it is believed necessary to define that municipality by municipality to make sure that it's abundantly clear. And that's why in paragraph 6 on page 1 and paragraph 6 on page 2, we made it clear that we're excluding the public safety employees and the E911 dispatchers and healthcare providers.
Anybody else?
Sorry, this is Alexis again. So can you just walk me through, because I'm confused and I want to make sure that it's really clear for the people, and maybe you've already done a really good job of explaining this to the department heads and their staff, which is great. But so if I'm somebody that needs to take this leave, the supplemental pay that we passed in the emergency session 2 weeks ago is probably lapsed by now. They've used that. So then we can offer the staff the emergency expansion. And then for the first 10 days sorry, I'm confused. Can you just walk me through from a perspective of somebody using this leave, how it's going to work into their schedules and how it's going to work with the teleworking policies as well, please? Just a high level.
And Ken and I will probably tag team this. First, with the supplemental paid leave, in fact, the vast majority of employees have just started using that this week. And that, if you recall, was 112 hours. So that is still in effect. When the Families First Coronavirus Response Act leave comes online, which is April 1st, if the employee is eligible for either the expanded FMLA leave or the emergency paid sick leave, they will use that first. Once that's exhausted, then they can, if the situation warrants, they can continue to use their supplemental paid leave. Under the expansion of the Family Medical Leave Act, yes, the first 10 days are unpaid. So the employee could make use of SPL, the supplemental paid leave, or any other paid leave they might have available. They could also make use of the emergency paid sick leave, which could be taken concurrent with that 10-day period where they're unpaid if they are eligible. And in terms of the telework, it really depends how many hours the employee is working. I know it's all across the board. We have employees that are actually working 40 hours a week remotely. I know in my office, we have one employee that's working 40 hours a week, and another employee that's working somewhere in the area of 12 to 15 hours a week, and they're using their supplemental paid leave and other accrued paid leave to make up the difference. And again, if they are eligible for the leave under the Families First Coronavirus Response Act, they would be able to use that starting April 1st. And those eligibility determinations are really going to be made on a case-by-case basis by our Human Resources Department. There will be an application to file, and the feds have given us some guidance as to how to implement this. Yeah.
Thank you, Grant. It was just, there's a lot of different pay rates and caps, and I want to make sure that staff are clear so that they're not losing out. So I appreciate the explanation. Thank you.
Yeah, and there's no doubt the federal act is a bit confusing, but we will set up an internal process where folks can contact Human Resources and make sure that they're aware of their eligibility and exactly what this means.
That'd be great. We really appreciate everything you guys and Kelly and her staff are doing. This is great. Thank you.
Hold on, there's a question.
Go ahead.
Is it possible to give us a ballpark feeling for how many of our employees can't work from home and aren't part of an essential service? So they are essentially at home using up the various days.
I can't.
So, Susie, that good question, and I was going to cover with the telework resolution next, but I can cover it now. So what we did is before the governor's order came into effect, we actually had each department put together what was called a continuation operations plan. So again, that was to determine how they could continue their operation. As part of that plan, we then sat down with each department head and went through position by position to determine who could work from home, who would be considered an essential function that would work, I guess, at their traditional work location, who would actually work from home, but in a blended fashion, as Grant had mentioned. So maybe it's not the full 40 hours, but there's still maybe some work they could do on a routine basis for us. And then are those positions where they would not have any type of work and they would use SPL? Just to do an estimation without the exact science, because it varies so much, I would say that we have probably about 80 to 85% of the workforce that right now is able to do some type of work, either on a full-time or a part-time basis. Other individuals, as I mentioned, that right now are relying on their various lead banks, as Grant has outlined before. So, example, some of them are using that SPL bank during this period of time right now.
Thank you. One more. When we were here 2 weeks ago and passed some of these policies, we hadn't yet finalized a policy for our 2 protective units. And I'm wondering if we've resolved that so that we're covering all of our employees.
Can I clarify, but the 2 represented areas are covered under, they have different policies that apply to them in terms of their protections. And Grant, maybe you could just specify or explain that better than I could, please.
Right. In the first instance, the relationship between the county and its public safety employees are governed by collective bargaining agreements, and those provide for different and in some cases additional paid leave and protections. And also, quite frankly, they are simply situated differently in a time of emergency. They're in a all hands on deck situation. And one of the things that we have done is, and what Ken indicated earlier, is in discussions that started late last week, understanding what was likely to come, the sheriff intends to implement an alternative work schedule. I just this morning reduced that to writing and sent it out to the attorney that represents the bargaining unit. And we expect to implement that in the next pay period, which will be April 5th. And also we will work with the bargaining unit to ensure that they're afforded everything they're entitled to under both the collective bargaining agreement, and they also have some duty disability under the statutes and other things that are available to them. So I don't know that I can specifically answer your question any more specifically than that, but it's sort of an ongoing process. And our intention is to make sure that our public safety workers, and I'm referring to the folks in the sheriff's department and in emergency services, are protected, are working, and in the event they aren't able to work, that they can take full advantage of the paid leave and other benefits that are available to them. Again, we're going to have to deal with that on a case-by-case basis as it comes up.
Thank you.
One thing too, as far as clarification, both of those representatives also have a sick time bank that the other, I guess, GMEs do not have. We have PTO. So they actually have banks both for, I guess, what they consider their vacation time, but they also have a sick time bank, which is also available to them as well. That's not available to the GMEs.
I have a question. Vinny Shomo.
Go ahead, Vinny.
Hello. Oh, hi. Thank you. I'm just wondering, well, thank you for all the work everyone's done and had to do so quickly to respond to this. With this topic in mind, as far as a work at home policy, I realize there may not have been one before this and we've had to put one together quickly. As far as having the technology available, having the training that's needed to have that implemented, enacting flexible work hours and new and creative ways to work from home, are all of these continually being reassessed to determine how many people can work from home and to hopefully increase that number, to as close to 100% full time as we can? Thank you.
I can answer. What we are doing is we are assessing it. We're actually in day 5. And we've been actually, a special shout out goes to our technical services, because we are in a very good position to even be able to provide this to most of our employees. And we are trying to enhance it as much as possible. And we are working with our employees to make those resources available to actually work from home. But likewise too, there are just some positions that simply, don't have to do that. And in those cases, for a certain period of time, we've been trying to either establish or define special projects that are still necessary or need to be done, and try to at least provide that opportunity to them. But again, in some cases, we're going to exhaust some of that depending on how long this lasts. But we are trying to do everything we can to, I guess, provide that opportunity.
And if I could add, I think what you'll see in the next policy is we're being extremely flexible and recognizing the situation we're in with the COVID-19 pandemic, the situation our employees are in. So I think the only limiting factor right now, with maybe 1 or 2 exceptions, is the work duties aren't susceptible to work from home, not any of those extraneous factors. Other than that, I think we've been making it work and will continue to make it work.
One other part with that question is the idea of in this, text, it's federally, the federal program, it mentions that any employee is subject to federal, state, or local quarantine or isolation related to COVID-19. Technically, that's every citizen in the country right now. So I'm just wondering at what, will employees be able to work with their department heads of saying, eventually, yes, I've been exposed to someone who has this, someone in my family may have this. I am feeling no symptoms, I am healthy. Can I continue to work from home without taking these funds if I so choose? Has that scenario been looked at? Because as this continues to expand around the country and the state, the qualifications for needing to isolate yourself are going to become, I'm assuming, much higher.
Well, again, I guess just to clarify, if I understand the correction right, if you're working from home, we're hoping that they are, again, self-isolating themselves should they be exposed to a family member. But likewise, if an employee is truly sick, I guess we're asking them to be honest. And if they're truly sick and can't function, I don't want them working as well. I want them to focus on recovery. So having them cough and try to do work was a little different than trying to cough and do work here at the office. So we're asking them to either use their bank or other sick leave as it's related to actually being sick. So if you have the flu or a cold or anything else this time of the season, if you're not feeling well and you can't perform, we're asking the employees to be honest and use the appropriate time. But again, if they're just self-quarantining because they have a family member that might have been exposed and they're following the safe at home rules, yes, we're asking them if they have the ability to work to continue working.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? If not, we'll go to a roll call vote.
Bacon,
Aye.
Boatman,
Aye.
Aye.
David Engelbert,
Aye.
Roy Engelbert,
Aye.
Anna
Aye.
Fisher,
Aye.
Don Lipstadt,
Yes.
Olson,
Aye.
Peter. Aye. Cook,
Aye.
Kohout. Aye. Lino,
Aye.
Londo. Aye. Norton. Aye. Robillard. Aye. Schultz. No, Schultz. That's let me repent that because Schultz is on all of these. How about Burley?
Aye.
Lisa. Laura. Aye. Wait. Aye. Austin.
Aye.
Oh, and Austin. Sorry, did I call you?
Yes.
Thank you. Oh, yes, I did.
And that has passed.
Senior moment.
Thank you. Resolution 2020-23, temporary COVID-19 telework arrangements. Can I have a motion?
I'll make that motion. Please, Wojcik. Second, Lundahl.
Thank you.
So again, just as we kind of discussed, this is a policy that allows us to, in essence, allow our employees to work from home. If there's any specific questions, it's been kind of drafted thanks to both Grant and Kelly. It kind of outlines the process that we're using, and again, allows the employees to work from home while we are still under what we consider this emergency declaration. And again, I know there might be a question, will this continue afterwards? I guess that'll be determined at a later date. But for right now, this policy focuses on the emergency situation that we are under right now.
Any questions? We'll go to a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Resolution 2020-24 will be taken up when we talk about ordinances in a little while. So we'll move to 2020-25. Approval of gift grant and or donation to Facilities and Parks Department memorial benches. Mr. Osted?
Also move.
Fisher, I'll second.
Put your hand up for something so I can hold it.
You want me to explain it?
Yes, please.
Some donations that are over $1,000 for a couple benches for the parks.
Okay.
First time.
Say that again.
Dan did.
Dan did.
What?
Fisher.
Fisher. Okay. Any questions on this? Since it involved money, we will go to a roll call vote.
Unmuted.
Boltman,
Aye.
Shomo. Aye. David Engelbert,
Aye.
Roy Engelbert,
Aye.
Inigo,
Aye.
Fisher,
Aye.
Dunlixon,
Yes.
Alstead,
Aye.
I'm Peter,
Aye.
Cook,
Aye.
Kohout,
Susie stepped out for a moment.
Aye.
Lundahl,
Aye.
Norton,
Aye.
Brookhart, aye. Burley,
Aye.
Lees Wadachek, aye. Wade,
Aye.
Austin,
Aye.
Bacon, aye. And Susie's still not back?
She's not back.
Here she is.
She's coming.
Oh, let her.
I apologize. I didn't know you were going to need a voice vote. Aye.
Okay, Kohout, aye.
Okay. That has been approved. Thank you. Resolution 2020-26, approval of gift grant and or donation to Facilities and Parks Department, the enclosed trailer. Mr. Osted?
Also move to approve.
Boltman, second.
This is a trailer that's donated by the part of the money is donated by the Friends of the Parks. Solely to put equipment in for the cave, and it's on standby for the cave for Shoebake.
Any questions?
Gift.
Was that a question?
Not here.
Okay. All right, we'll move to a roll call vote.
You're right. We're just torn.
Shomo,
Aye.
David Engelbert,
Aye.
Roy Engelbert,
Aye.
Inigo,
Aye.
Fisher,
Aye.
Dunlixon,
Aye.
Halsted,
Aye.
I'm Peter,
Aye.
Cook,
Aye.
Kohout,
Aye.
Lino,
Aye.
Lundahl, aye. Ninus,
Aye.
Norton,
Aye.
Robillard,
Aye.
Burley,
Aye.
Lees Wadachek, aye. Wade,
Aye.
Austin,
Aye.
Bacon,
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. That is passed. Resolution 2020-27, approval of FAA antenna and equipment space lease at the Door County Cherryland Airport. Mr. Ninus?
I make a motion to approve resolution 2020-27.
Fisher, I'll second that.
This is a renewal of the lease that we have with the FAA for space at the Door County Advocate, and because of the time span, it has to come before the board.
Any questions? We'll need to go to a roll call vote.
Engelbert,
Aye.
Roy Engelbert,
Aye.
Inigo,
Aye.
Fisher,
Aye.
Gullickson,
Aye.
Olmsted,
Aye.
I'm Peter. Aye. Cook,
Aye.
Kohout. Aye. Lino,
Aye.
Lundo. Aye. Ninus,
Aye.
Norton,
Aye.
Robillard. Aye. Burley,
Aye.
Lees Watercheck. Aye. Waite,
Aye.
Austin,
Aye.
Bacon,
Aye.
Boltman,
Aye.
Shomo.
Aye.
Thank you. That is passed. Resolution 2020-28, County Snowmobile Trail Aid for the 2020-21 snow season. Mr. Austin.
Also vote for Resolution 2020.
Early second.
This is to apply for the state for the funds for the snowmobile trails of Door County. It's done on an annual basis.
Any questions? Since there is no stated fiscal impact, we would do this by voice vote. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is passed. Resolution 2020-29, approval of multi-discharger phosphorus variance grant. Mr. Fisher.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll make a motion. We adopt resolution number 2020-29.
Alsted, second.
Is Erin Hansen here? Or somebody from the department?
There. If she is, I do have a question, but it's not a big deal. I think she's here.
Hi, can you hear me?
Oh,
Yes.
Yes.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
This resolution is to accept funding through a statewide program that's managed by DNR. It allows wastewater treatment plants to comply with reduced phosphorus limits by giving funding to county conservation departments instead of upgrading their wastewater treatment plant. And so what we'll do is we'll use the money to give cost share to a landowner to install a conservation practice that reduces phosphorus in the same amount that's required of the village.
Okay. Any questions?
Anigo, here's a question.
Go ahead.
I don't remember seeing this resolution style. I'm assuming this is a variation of an annual resolution. I don't remember seeing it ever before. So is it annual? And then does Casco expect it at some point in time to upgrade their system, or are they just allowed to basically continue to skate through on this application aspect?
Sure. It's not an annual resolution. This is the first time that we've received this funding. The state has had this program for a few years. It's relatively new. This was the first time that funding more than a few dollars was available to us in Door County. And so that's why we're taking advantage of the program. And to your second part of whether or not the village needs to eventually upgrade, if I understand correctly, and admittedly, this is a new program for me, so I'm more familiar with what we need to do on the conservation department side than what the village needs to do. But if I understand, I believe that their permit phosphorus limits will eventually decline, but they're able to use this program instead of upgrading their wastewater treatment plant. And so they may need to contribute more funding as their permit limits drop, but this is the way by which they can more cost effectively meet those phosphorus criteria rather than upgrading their wastewater treatment plant.
Thank you. That's why I was wondering, because I've certainly seen this kind of buying out of becoming compliant in other applications. And in some cases, it just runs you. It's cheaper for them to do this rather than do the right thing. And I was wondering what little knowledge you might have. So thank you.
Supervisor Boltman, question.
Go ahead.
Is there oversight from the DNR then to basically check us and say, okay, you've done enough phosphorus reduction, or how does that work?
Yes, there is oversight. So we have required reporting that we need to give to the DNR to prove that we've used the money to effectively reduce phosphorus. And it does tie into modeling. So we'll need to do modeling of the conservation practice that's installed to demonstrate that we are expected, our phosphorus, our expected phosphorus reductions are equivalent to what we're required to do. And the state does build in a margin of safety. So it's not a one-to-one, but rather they build in a little extra so that we are truly capturing as much phosphorus as the wastewater treatment plant needs to reduce.
Thank you. Additional question. $4,500 really doesn't go very far. So do you have any sense how many people or farmers or properties this might help?
We'll look to target one project most likely out of this.
Okay.
Most likely a field practice such as a grass waterway in a high priority watershed.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Supervisor Henical, question again on top of that. Does this become, I would presume that this reduction is an annual event. So in other words, this 4,500 is for a reduction during this window of time, as opposed to, again, back to my other examples where these kind of grants are used to permanently reduce the use of phosphorus throughout the time. I'm assuming they only have to be obligated to meet that requirement during this 1 year window.
Good question. So the practice that we install has to be durable for a certain length of time. For example, a grassed waterway, the operation and maintenance period for that would be 15 years. So we'll be looking to enter into a contract with the landowner and following up to make sure that that practice is maintained over time. But the other time piece related to this is that the village will need to, on an annual basis, evaluate what their phosphorus discharge limits are through their permit and continue to participate in order to be eligible. They need to continue to provide funding to meet their phosphorus reductions.
So then this 4,500 is a one-time event, but it's got up to a potential of a 15-year payback.
Correct. That would be the example if we installed a grass waterway, for example.
Thank you.
Yep.
Anybody else? We'll go to a roll call vote.
Roy Hibbert,
Here. Yes.
Henical,
Yes.
Fisher,
Aye.
Ellingson,
Yes.
Alsted,
Aye.
Einpeel,
Aye.
Cook,
Aye.
Kohout,
Aye.
Lino,
Aye.
Lundahl, Ninus,
Aye.
Norton,
Aye.
Robillard,
Aye.
Burley,
Aye.
Please Watercheck. Aye. Wait,
Aye.
Austin,
Aye.
Bacon,
Aye.
Boatman,
Yes.
Shomo. Aye. David Engelbert.
That has passed. Thank you. Resolution 2020-30, approval of donation for prohibited invasive species management. Mr. Fisher.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll make a motion we adopt resolution number 2020-30. Approval of donation for prohibited invasive species management. This comes from the DNR to the tune of $3,500.
Is that a motion?
I made the motion that we adopted, yes.
Was there a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Okay, we will move to a roll call vote.
Inigo,
Aye. Did you get that?
yeah, sorry. Gullikson,
Yes.
Halsted,
Aye.
Halsted,
Aye.
Brian Peter. Aye. Cook,
Aye.
Kohout. Aye.
Yes.
Lundahl. Aye. Ninus. North.
Aye.
Ruler. Aye. Curley.
Aye.
Lee's Watercheck. Aye. Wade.
Aye.
Austin.
Aye.
Aiken.
Aye.
Boltman.
Aye.
Shomo.
Aye.
David Engelbert.
Aye.
Roy Engelbert.
Aye.
That has passed. Thank you. Resolution 2020-31, property taxes, 56 North 4th Avenue, transfer of non-budgeted funds. David Engelbert,
I make a motion to approve resolution number 2020-31.
Hannibal, second.
Deals with paying the property tax on the former Yonkers building at 56 North 4th Avenue. Amount of tax was worked through the purchase price. You need to pay the full amount that was prorated in the purchase.
any questions?
Supervisor Enical with a statement.
Go ahead.
So this is another one of those examples of where we go out and do something that when it first came to finance, I was like, what am I missing here about a nonprofit buying property? Then it made total sense when it was explained. I mean, to me, it was a duh. No, should have understood it. But this is one of those expenses, again, relative to buying property. We should have been taking care of the time we decided to purchase the property rather than after the fact. It's just one of those things that should have, as a nonprofit, been figured in from day one. And that's the end of my comment.
Anybody else?
David Engelbert, just to add to that, what Mr. Enical was talking about is the assessment on January 1 of the year is for the entire year. So us purchasing, the county purchasing it in March, it was still required to pay property taxes on it.
Linda?
Yes, this project has certainly strayed far from my original expectations of a little over a year ago. I hope that eventually it does become a community asset and not a county liability. But I also hope that in light of the current circumstances and the resulting financial consequences that may be put on our county, that any substantial investments in this property, the former Yonkers Furniture Store, is now on hold. I guess that's a question.
So right now, we're not doing any expenditures. The only thing that I guess is still in progress is that at Facilities and Parks, they reviewed or had a presentation by the consultant last month in terms of some options. And Facilities and Parks requested that they update that with some additional information, and that's the only thing that's proceeding at this point in time. Other than that, there is no other expenditures currently planned at this point.
Supervisor Enical with a question.
Sure.
Last month, however, we had a plan in our packet indicating a planned direction. Did something change? Because obviously we didn't talk about that last month. Did something change that we're going to see a different set? Because that plan that I saw, I was not in favor of. So are they revisiting it? What's happening that now we're hearing that they're asking for additional questions to be answered?
Yes, Facilities and Parks wanted to get more information so that way there's a more comprehensive, I guess, presentation made to the county board should it come up that far.
Is it still going to look substantially similar to what we saw last month?
Potentially, but there's also additional options we're looking at.
Okay, I agree with Supervisor Wade about under the current circumstances and all that's going on, all the monies that potentially going to have to be put out that we hold on any actual physical work on the property until a more reasonable environment arises.
Anybody else?
Dr. Cook?
Go ahead, John.
Yeah, number that we can get, a total amount of dollars that we spent on the Ockers building today?
We don't have that available right now, but we can do that.
Could we get that in the future, maybe for the next meeting?
Yes, I can work with Wayne. We can compile that information for you.
Thank you.
That's a good request.
Any other comments or questions? We will move to a roll call vote.
Fisher,
Aye.
Gudlickson,
Aye.
Alsted,
Aye.
Hein Peter. Aye. Cook,
Aye.
Kohout. Aye. Lena,
Aye.
Lundell. Aye. Nyman,
Aye.
Norton. Aye. Robillard. Aye. Farley.
Aye.
Reed Watercheck. Aye. Wade.
Aye.
Austin.
Aye.
Bacon. Aye. Boltman.
Aye.
Shomo. Aye. David Engelbert.
Aye.
Engelbert.
Aye.
And
Aye.
That has passed. Thank you. Resolution 2020-32, County Roads and Bridges Fund, transfer of non-budgeted funds. David Engelbert,
I make a motion to approve resolution 2020-32.
Kohout, second.
Sure, I can cover this one just for reference, but again, last year at the highway department, we experienced a shortfall really in our snow plowing. Obviously, you recall, you can go back to 2019, especially in the spring, we had some significant snowfall events, which had us go, into the red in terms of our operations for that account. And what we do is when we get through each year, we look at how, we finished. And this is the offset that we need to, balance that account. And again, it's being taken out of our fund, what's called the County Roads and Bridges Reserve Account, which was specifically established to address this type of situation.
any questions?
This is Hein Peter, line 12, the third whereas, there's a start of a parenthesis, but not the end. And I'm confused. I know that I saw this in committee, but it's still confusing to me, these different accounts when I was reading it again. So if you could just refresh my memory, please, about where the surplus is in these different accounts and that third whereas.
So if, for the account, there was other areas where we had some additional funds that were not spent. And that's what that resolution is showing. So in essence, we had a shortage. If you look at the whereas above, you can see that there was a shortage of the 347,822. We had some other lines where we did not spend all the money, which when we take that, it then is applied as, not surplus funds, but funds that were not spent. It brings that 347,882 down to the 323,138. So then what we're doing is that we're applying a fund from 205, which is called the County Road and Bridges. That's our reserve account. We're taking the funds out of that reserve account to make highway whole for their deficit.
In the right-hand parentheses should be after the E in revenue at the end of that line. Line 15.
Okay, thank you.
Here.
Go ahead.
Question then, under the circumstances, this is one of those things where you don't know what you're going to spend on road until the year's over. So in the rare situation when we have the variable we have is our weather conditions. If it snows less is the biggest thing, that's the biggest drop in dollar value. Is this the same set of accounts that we put those kind of differences back into?
Correct. So we spoke at finance. What our policy will be going forward is that reserve account, which is the county road and bridges account. Our targeted fund balance is $500,000. If you look down at the fiscal impact, after we apply this balance, we'll still be at $679,490. So in essence, we'll still have, I guess, excess funds that will move out of that account. But again, as far as a policy and a practice moving forward, our target reserve amount will be $500,000.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, Burley.
Go ahead, Biz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Said that 179
usual year list.
But you said, Mr. Administrator, that 179,490 would be moved out. Where does that money go?
That money goes back into the undesignated.
Any other questions? We will move to the roll call vote.
Yes.
Alston,
Yes.
Klein Peter,
Yes.
Cook,
Yes.
I think that was Kohout, and I say yes.
Lino,
Yes.
Lundell,
Yes.
Ninus,
Yes.
Norton,
Yes.
Robillard, yes. Burley,
Yes.
He's left the room.
Wait,
Yes.
Austin,
Yes.
Bacon,
Yes.
Boatman,
Aye.
Jomo,
Aye.
David Engelbert,
I,
Roy Engelbert,
Aye.
Engel,
Aye.
Fisher,
Aye.
and no.
Just covered her.
Miss Watercheck is coming back, I believe.
Please want to check aye.
Thank you. That is passed. Resolution 2020-33, approval of agreement of transfer of non-budgeted funds from mail retention archiving solution. David Engelbert.
I make a motion to approve resolution number 2020-33.
Enigal, second.
Thank you.
Sure. So I'll give you the short version. In essence, we had a mail archive solution that we had in-house. But the vendor informed us that they are no longer supporting the software. By statute, we're required to retain our records for 7 years. So I instructed Jason to find an alternative. They went through a process of evaluating the software, presented to the Technical Services Committee for that expenditure. Then it had to go to finance because, again, it was unplanned. It was unplanned again since we were informed by the vendor budget process in terms that they were no longer supporting the software. So in essence, what you'll see here is we're requesting those funds and that it be taken from the contingency expense account.
Questions?
Yes.
Supervisor Boltman, so were there different vendors looked into? Was this the cheapest, or I don't see any was there a vetting process or why are we going with this vendor versus another one?
Yes, they actually evaluated several different packages. They looked both at terms of, well, one obviously cost, the other one is also performance and what it does in terms of tools. I know they had a matrix that was presented at the Technical Services Committee in terms of what they were looking for, and this was the recommended software recommended by the IT director, Jason.
Thank you.
Engelbert, I was going to add that it is a 7-year contract, and the cost of this, while we're paying it upfront, will then be credited back to some of these accounts in the next years as we move forward.
That is correct.
Okay. It's a 7-year contract. Is the total cost the $32,500 or is that $32,500 annually?
That is the total cost.
Okay, thank you.
That's a total? I didn't hear that.
Yes, total.
Total cost.
Any other questions?
Yeah, early comment.
Go ahead.
There was a 3-year and I think a 5-year. And I questioned whether we do this, all this money up front that we pay as we go, but the incentive by going to the 7-year was a break in the money. We actually gain it. I question that the way things are in the world, that a company can file bankruptcy or go under and we lose that money. But Jason told us that this is really a very good company and very unlikely that it would fold up. So the incentive to go with the 7-year was a better deal than the 3-year and the 5-year.
Thank you. Anybody else? Any questions or comments? We will move to a roll call vote.
Olmsted.
Aye.
Klein Peter.
Aye.
Aye.
Kohout. Aye. Lino.
Aye.
Wendell. Aye. Clark.
Aye.
Norton.
Aye.
Robillard. Aye. Burley.
Aye.
Lee Wonser. Aye.
Aye.
Austin.
Yes.
Baker.
Aye.
Bolton.
Aye.
Jomo. David Engelbert. Engelbert.
Aye.
Inigo.
Aye.
Fisher.
Aye.
Gullickson.
Aye.
Thank you. That is passed. Resolution 2020-34, approval of agreement to amend county administrator contract. I will make that motion.
I will second that, Mr. Chairman. Fisher?
Is Kelly available?
Yes.
Okay, I will try and take a stab at this first. And Kelly, please add if you'd like, or Ken, or Grant. What basically this is doing is we are taking the administrator's contract and we are allowing it to age as our pay program ages. So this is a update, including the aging of his contract that was not previously included in the prior contract or the current contract.
Correct. Now, I'll just add one thing.
Yes.
Just for the rest of the county board, the main idea is that my contract is outside of the county wage structure. And the main reason it's set up that way is really to allow the position itself to objectively review the wage structure and make recommendations without self-inheriting that benefit. The way the contract is worded is that it's not guaranteed that the administrator would see that aging. It's simply stating that you have the right to review it. So in an example, if the wage would, for example, we're going to do the wage study next year, or we would do an aging, separate of the contract, but then when you do my review, or you have the right to at least consider that impact on my contract. Right now, that wording wasn't in there, and that's what we changed to add it. And again, it doesn't have to be a percentage match. It's just an opportunity for the board to review that and offer consideration for such.
Kelly, did you want to add anything?
No, I think that really covers it.
Okay. Are there any questions?
This says Supervisor Cook. Why wasn't this included in the first package that we voted on?
In the original contract?
The original contract.
In my mind, it was just an oversight, and I had requested it in a discussion with David as part of my review that it be considered as an amendment.
And so the admin committee then considered this over the last couple of months and spoke with Kelly and worked through how we thought it would be best put into an amendment. Any other questions?
Peter.
Sure.
Sorry. I just have a small question on wording. The First Amendment, page 1 says the salary of the administrator and then lists by year. And then in the new amendment, it says the annual salary equivalent of the administrator. And I'm just wondering what the impact of the verbiage is.
What it is that we have to translate it into an hourly rate. So if it said April 1st through August 2nd of the wage, you're not actually going to pay me that much during that window of time. You're just going to give me the equivalent rate. So that's what the wording's for, is that you just convert it to the hourly rate during that period of time.
Any other questions?
Supervisor Anagle here.
Go ahead, Dave.
First question. I remember our discussions about this salary, about this contract in the first days when it was brought through the first time, when we hired this administrator, even the considerations when we hired the previous administrator. One of the whole points of having this contract, rather than being part of the wage study structure, was to allow that to be outside of the picture of the wage study with structure, with the belief of being independent, not self-benefiting themselves. This new wording clearly, I mean, let's be realistic. The likelihood of a wage structure increase occurring for the employees and then not being consequently transferred to the administrator is very unlikely. The other thing is I enter into contracts. My contracts are defined for a window of time. I don't get to evaluate that throughout my contract. It gets reevaluated at the end of the contract, or some substantial evidence justifies reevaluating it. This contract was written with a predefined annual increase based on the values that were considered at the time. I'm not in favor of working through yet another contract just because things are being asked to be looked at. It is difficult for me to understand that back when we approved this contract, we are now revisiting it again. To me, it was put to bed the day we approved it, and that was the end of it. So going through this again is just wrong. As a businessman, that doesn't make sense to me. So for me, I'm absolutely voting against it for numerous reasons. But this is just inappropriate. What's the point of having a contract if we're going to review it on basically a whim? That's the end of my comment for now.
The only comment is that the statewide made the request. When we negotiated my contract, we established it to, readjust the wage to be comparable within the other wage plan. In other words, with our other, if you look at the top of the wage plan, you're looking at your other department heads. And again, it's when we did this was the change in the market, and we look at all the aging. The contract that I'm under right now got passed by other department heads, and I just wanted to have that recognized that occurred. So that was the purpose for the request.
And yet we have the potential, if you listen to the news, which personally I don't pay a lot of credence to in this an economy aspect, but that economy has taken a dive and will take a dive, and we're going to need to. We are constantly being reminded that every year that our budget our shortfalls are getting worse and worse. And at some point in time, we're fortunate today as a county to be relatively healthy monetarily speaking, but we are always supposed to be looking for cuts. And here we are adding more money to a position that other departments will be forced to cut in compensation for. That's difficult for me to accept also. This is an unrealistic request to me.
Again, taking myself out of it, our philosophy, this as an organization, is to, taking out the administrator. No matter what the position is, our philosophy has been is to try to maintain a fair wage schedule for our existing employees. So. That's
And I
not,
don't disagree with that, but we've entered into a 5-year contract for your position.
Yes, we did enter into a 5-year contract. We've also given ourselves the opportunity to go back and evaluate anybody's contract, including our aging of our existing employees. And that's why when we were requested, we took a look at it. We spent a couple of months reviewing this and taking a look. And this is what we decided as the admin committee to forward to the board.
I'm still going to vote against it.
Okay, that's your fine. Any other questions?
This is Helen Bacon. Could you explain to me again, I don't quite understand how this came forward, when it came forward, and why it came forward?
Thank you. Good question.
it came forward as part of my review process. And it came forward because I sat down with David as part of my review. And I explained to him my, I guess, concern with what was happening with the contract. And that's how it proceeded and went forward from that standpoint.
And so we agreed to take a look at it. That's what we did. And this is what we are, as a result of that evaluation and a relook at it, this is what we decided to move forward to the board.
And this is Supervisor Boltman, and can you explain why, why is there a change? Why is there an increase in the annual salary? I don't understand this aging. What does it mean? Why is the number going up?
So if you looked at what happens with the county wage plan, what we did for the past 2 years is we have a wage plan. The wage plan was originally established by the consultant. In that wage plan, you have the ability to figure your steps. You move up through the wage plan at 2.5% in your steps, but then also above that, between 100 to 115, you get your performance review. And if you're above 115, you get a performance. It doesn't add to your base pay. When we also do that each year, what we do is we do a market analysis on our wage plan. And what we do is we get a recommendation from the consultant if should the plan itself, in essence, what they do is they call it aging or a cost of living increase. So what it does, for example, I'll just keep it simple as far as the math. But if you have a position that the market is at 100%, currently is at $10, the consultant can come back and say, well, you need to remain competitive. That $10 should actually be increased to a new base. And we have done that now for the past 2 years. The past 2 years, each time we have aged the plan 3%. So an employee would have seen their aging of the 3%, still also can either progress through the steps or through the national evaluation. So that was done both 2 years. So it's aged 3% and again 3% now in 2020.
And so is that 3% what's reflected in the blue numbers, the amended numbers when we compare the list of
5%,
the salary, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 2018 through 2022 on the original, and we look at this amended contract, we're seeing from 3 to 6 or 2020 to 2022, blue numbers that are increased. Is that 3% representing that blue number change? Those change of blue numbers?
So the first one, that number 3 is representing a 3 and 3. So it's not a 6, it's a 3 and 3 because the math is a little bit different. So it represents what would happen if that would apply. That was a recommendation of the admin committee. As been having a discussion with the admin committee. Then the other 3 years, the 20, 21, and 22 reflect the original contract, which is a 2%.
I come up with 5%.
So this is Helen Bacon again. So going off of what Dave Enegal said, this is projecting ahead the 3%. And then what Dave was saying is that the current status of our economy and everything that's going on I can remember many years, number one, after 9/11 and after 27, I received 000 cost of living for many years. Is that a possibility that that would be happening? And are we giving 3% to an unknown situation in the future?
No, the 3% isn't built in the future. It's the following years again is just a 2%, which was built into the contract. It was 2%, and that was based off an average employee would get 2.5%. But again, above the midpoint, it would vary. Right now, we've been averaging between 2 and 2.75%.
And just looking at, this is Supervisor Anigal, and just looking at the number 4 line entry, August 3rd, 2020 through August 2nd, 2021, the value there from the existing contract to the proposed value is roughly a 5% increase, if I do my math correctly, on top of the annual increase that's already built into it.
Correct.
That's a pretty hefty income increase.
Again,
Even in a great economy.
Again, it reflects the aging, which was 6%, and I presented that to the committee, and the committee discussed it, and that was their recommendation.
I have a quick question. This is
Benny.
Benny Shomo. Does the 3%, it's hard to hear all of this, but so I'm hearing right, the 3% that is proposed here, which the numbers don't show that. If you look on the Second Amendment one, to go from 126,956 to 134,574 from line 2 to line 3 is more than a 3%. But that could, if you could answer that in just a minute, but were you also saying that all county staff has a 3% cost of living increase every year? And this mirrors that? I wasn't sure if that's what you were saying.
So, yes, correct. So what's happening is that in 19 and now in 20, the employees experienced a 3% aging in the wage structure. So they experience that, plus they go through their normal review. So with that, so an example, a person that was in a steps would have seen the 3% aging. Then when they had the review, they got another 2.5% on top. It's in essence about 5.5%. That again occurred in 2020. So again, they'll see the 3% plus their 2.5%. If they're at the midpoint up to 115%, they would get the 3% at the aging. Plus then they qualify based off the performance between 2 to 2.75, I believe is the rate that we have established. Kelly, you can correct me if I'm off on that. I don't have the wage structure with me in that one. I think it's actually got.
No, that's correct.
Then again,
Thank you.
And then if you're above 115%, depending on how your wage fell, how far above, your 3% would have been done as a base, in essence, a bonus in terms of that. But then you also get your evaluation, and again, depending where you land, it depends on that. In terms of the increase, again, it's not exact because if you would have done just a straight 6%, the actual number would have been higher. So again, I worked with Kelly, and Kelly did it. He took 3% and then 3% that got to that number, that 134,574.2. If you do these methods, it's their it ends up being 5 point something if you do decimal points on it. So that's where that number arrives. In terms of why that number was chosen, I'll defer that to the admin committee. I simply asked for that number to be reviewed. I gave you the facts that the employees, the GPs, have seen in essence, a 3 and a 3 or 6%. And again, the motion at the administrative committee was to match that.
I guess I also want to point out that if you look at paragraph B on the Second Amendment, it also clearly states the annual salary equivalent can be amended by the county board should the county board amend the wage structure by aging or by a wage study, whether that's up or down. It also requires a minimum satisfactory rating on a performance evaluation.
Okay, this is Helen Bacon again. Okay, so I get all of that, and this is reflective of the last review and the current cost of living. or aging. I don't know why they would call it aging. But my next question is more of like a process question. Considering the situation we are in now, at what point does all of this get reviewed for all employees, considering, I think thinking that we might be not knowing where our budget is going to be next year? At what point does all of this get reviewed? Can you give me some idea on that process?
Well, I think we review it as part of our budget process moving forward. So we start putting together the budget in terms of what we do right now. Our wage plan's in effect. So I'm assuming what you're asking is do we suspend our wage plan and not do that in 2021? I guess that we look at that as part of the budget process and see where we're falling fiscally in terms of our budget process.
Was that your question, Helen?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, it just seems that I can see where this is built into what has happened. I guess my concern is going forward.
We never really go down. We never really go down.
Other questions?
So I've got another question again, Supervisor Enigal.
Sure, go ahead.
Based on the original contract, my memory was, and it's displayed there, is one of the objective was it was due to the way we hired this administrator, when we hired him, I should say. But we were going to, at the end of this contract, roll it over to a January 1st start date, just like we do for every other employee. And the contract for that does show that. It shows December 31st, 2023. But the revised contract shows it as April 2nd, 2023. It's also not highlighted in blue, even though that's a change.
August 22nd.
August, I'm sorry. Even though that's not a change, it's a change. Why did we go back to the annual date there other than the original intent was, as I remember it, was to bring them into the January 1st renewal date for contract purposes. So effectively, the administrator is getting August, September, December, 3 months wages 3 months earlier.
The contract, when I started, it's always been from August. So
that's not the way it's written in the form, though.
I'm not sure the question is it's actually, I don't know, you consider it 3 months later or 8 months later. I mean, 3 months earlier or 8 months later. It depends on how you're getting it, I guess.
Well, the contract list there of the 5 year cycles shows December 31st as the ending date for the 5th year. And my memory was so that January 1st became the start date again. That would be, if you compare between pages 45 of the packet and
47.
Yeah, that is interesting.
I mean, somebody had to manually change that date of August 2nd on the second version, on the current one we're voting on.
And again, I'm fine with, if that's the question we have, we can definitely make that last one, the 31st. I see what you're saying. Between the B and the C, the copy, you need December 30th.
So if that's the case, then I guess somebody would have to make a motion, correct, Grant?
Yeah.
So then I made a motion to revise item number 6 that begins with August 3rd, 22 through August 2nd, 23 to be revised to match the line entry of number 5 from the current contract through December 31st, 2023.
Is there a second on that?
I'll second it. Helen Bacon.
Okay. So we will do a voice vote on the amendment. So all in favor of changing the date to December 31st, 2023 on line 6 on the amendment? By voice vote, all in favor, aye.
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 Opposed? No. Okay, that has passed as amended. Back to the original vote, we will go to a roll call vote.
Does this need 2/3? Or no, it's a majority, right?
Majority votes.
Supervisor Boltman, I have one more question, please.
Go ahead, Bob.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So again, looking at the totals for each year, when we start talking budget later this year, and if things, in the larger economy are not so good, I mean, basically what I'm asking is these numbers are not set in stone. If the board determines to not give that 3%, we don't have to?
Yes, I refer you to item B, right below it. The annual salary equivalent can be amended by the county board should the county board amend the wage structure by aging or by a wage study.
So if we were to look at, as Helen was referring to, what our employees across the board, that's something that could be amended. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Supervisor Enigal, as a reminder though, the default is to continue down that the current written plan. Somebody has to actually bring it to the county board to make a change. It's not an automatic option during budget time. It's only an option if it gets brought to the county board.
Correct. And it would be brought forward. In my mind, if we would do something such as freezing the wage structure, yes, you bring both forward at the same time.
And I would think you would also bring it forward as part of the annual review. It could be brought up then too.
Understood. Somebody has to make that effort.
I have a question, Vinnie Shomo.
Go ahead, Vinnie.
Is this similar? How do other counties handle this? Do we have any information on that as far as if an administrator is an employee of the county and all the employees are treated the same with cost of living and step increase and wage plan? I'm just wondering, I wasn't a supervisor when the original contract was signed, but the reason that this is even coming forward is to be treating employees fairly, I'm assuming.
Actually, so it's a good question. So if it's blended across the board, what you'll see is in some counties, the administrator or the coordinator is actually part of the wage structure itself. Again, so when you actually look at our wage structure, you'll actually see the administrator listed and see how they fall within the wage plan. And then likewise, what you're also now seeing is you're seeing more administrators being moved to what's considered a contract. So they are inside of that wage plan. So it's blended across the state. Again, if it's a county executive, that's actually set similar to elected positions because that is an elected position.
Okay, we're going to move to a roll call vote.
We have a question, please.
Clarification?
Well, go ahead.
Okay, so if I understand this right, the blue numbers are set in stone if we approve this. It's not that with each year they will be looked at, right?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
They can be looked at every year under item B.
But we have to bring it up to look at them.
That's correct. And as I said, I think every time we do an evaluation, we bring it up.
Dave Engelberg, a question on that regard though. Is it ever typical to go back and lower the salary once it's been in place? That simply either it's held or adjusted in the future, but not you've established the number. And going in a 4-year period from what end of the 2019 contract to the 23 contract, there's an increase of virtually $22,000 there. And that is an awful amount. Probably excessive, I should say.
Any other comments? We're We're going to go to a roll call vote. Go ahead, Jill.
I'm Peter.
Aye.
No.
Kohout. No. Lino.
Aye.
Lundall. Aye. Ninus.
Aye.
Norton.
Aye.
Robillard.
Aye.
Burley.
Aye.
Lees Waticek. Aye. Wheat.
Nay.
Austin.
Aye.
Bacon.
No.
Boltman.
No.
Shomo. Vinnie.
Oh,
Aye. Engelbert.
No.
Roy Engelbert.
Aye.
Inigo.
no.
Fisher.
Aye.
Gunlickson.
Aye.
Alston.
No.
13 A's, 8 no's.
That has passed on a vote of 13 aye and 8 no. Resolution 2020-35, I'm sorry. Yeah, just give me a minute. I just want to finish the resolution. Resolution 2020-35, ratification of orders of County Board Chairman and County Administrator per Resolution 2020-19.
The motion first.
Yes, need a motion.
Mr. Chairman, Ken Fisher, I'll make a motion to adopt resolution number 2020-35.
Thank you. Need a second?
Second, Gunlickson.
Thank you.
Okay, this motion relates actually to actions we have taken as terms of organization and expenditures that were, I guess, approved. Meaning that these expenditures be taken out of our contingency. What we're looking at is in facilities and parks is up to $5,000 for a machine that is used for cleaning a room, should it be necessary. We learned of that based off 2 cases, one in and also in Brown County. And again, there's this equipment in essence that it's not really fogging it per se, but in essence it's used to spray down the room and go through and clean. So we authorize the purchase of that. For technical services, we authorized up to $15,000, and this was for items were related to home equipment or equipment for allowing the work from home, and also the conference room meeting equipment that we have set up in the rooms that some of you are in right now. The other item is under the ADRC. We authorize up to $5,500 for equipment and supplies for the meal program. In essence, those supplies are allowing us to obviously prepare the meals, but allows us to, in essence, freeze or seal the meals, since we're seeing a lot of that converted to Meals on Wheels.
Any questions?
Sorry to be a broken record.
I have a question.
Supervisor Anigal.
Go ahead, Dave.
Last meeting, this resolution 2020-19 came before us. Unfortunately, it came before us in the form of paper. I went online, could not find a digital copy of it to bring with me today. And so I could read what it actually said. I already recycled my original copy, didn't think I was going to need it. But I remember specifically asking, as written, that means that the administrator and the county chair will together determine these transactions that will occur underneath this resolution. The resolution is written, the county administrator and or county board chairperson. It says that twice in the resolution. How is this different? If my understanding of the resolution into 2020-19 was that both of you would together make this decision, and that was confirmed when I was there at the meeting earlier this month. Why does it say and or here in this resolution?
I'm looking at Grant.
You said drafting oversight. My understanding is that both the chairperson and county administrator are making these decisions jointly.
And that is correct. That's how they've been made.
So we can get rid of the backslash. That's my drafting error.
Is it appropriate for me to make a motion saying to remove the /or and for all future ones be listed correctly?
If you'd like.
Also do.
Second.
Cook.
Again, this is part of that open records and recognition of proper procedures being followed because these are extraordinary times. And I want to make sure that what we agreed, the public understands and believes continues to happen because this resolution clearly does not match what we agreed in the resolution.
Okay, we'll vote on the amendment. All in favor of the amendment?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. So as amended, any other questions or comments on the ratification of the orders?
Supervisor Show, I have one.
Go ahead, Vinnie.
Thank you. As far as the $5,000 for the special cleaning, is that something that would be utilized by ambulances as well if they need to be fogged, or is there a process that already happens, or would this be something you would add in as needed?
The equipment we're talking about here would be used in our building facilities. Aaron has his own procedures, and as well as public safety, their own procedures as far as in Aaron's area, they call it detoxing, but yeah, they have their own procedures for actually cleaning up the.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? We'll go to a roll call vote, and we will take a 10-minute recess after this roll call vote.
Get a little bit under that.
Cook,
Aye.
Koha, aye. Neal,
Aye.
Londo, aye. Minus,
Aye.
Norton,
Aye.
Millard, aye. Burley, Wanacek, aye. Wade,
Aye.
Austin,
Yes.
Bacon,
Aye.
Boltman,
Aye.
Vinnie, David Engelbert, Roy Engelbert,
Aye.
Inigo,
Aye.
Fisher,
Aye.
Gunlickson,
Yes.
Halsted,
Aye.
I'm Peter.
Aye.
That has passed. Thank you. We will go back into session at 20 after 11. We're now in recess.
We can get together all the way out.